Good day, grade sixes, and welcome to Saving Grace Homeschool. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of our English work for weeks 7 and 8. So let's jump right into what they have prepared for us. So here we're taking a look at language, and we're specifically at first taking a look at verbs. So they're asking you to match the verbs with the correct pictures. Fill in the number in the picture next to the correct verb. So do not use a verb more than once. So I'm going to read the verbs over here first. Let's draw a nice little block around that just so that you guys know what I'm speaking of. So this over here, this is your block of verbs, okay? So those verbs are cook, do, drink, drive, eat, go, have, like, listen, play, read, speak, bake, watch, wear, ride, and blow out. Then we have in a flat, a bike, pet, cake, German, a VW, a newspaper, to the radio, to the movies, television, the candles, tennis, a sandwich, coffee, junk food, dinner, homework, and glasses. So they're asking us to fill in the numbers in these little blocks. So let's take a look at our first verb. Our first verb is cook. So which picture fits with cook? And that would be to cook dinner. So that would be picture number 16. Do, what do you guys have to do every afternoon after school? You've got homework to do. So to do homework, so that's picture 17. Then they say drink. So what is something that we can drink over here? And remember that we have already used dinner and homework. So you can drink coffee. So that is picture 14. Then drive. So there's only one car in this picture, right? So that means that it has to be a VW. You drive a VW. So that is picture number 6. Then we have eat. So you can eat a cake, and you can eat a junk food, and you can eat a sandwich. But now you need to look at what else we have. So we know we have bake. So cake is probably going to fit bake. So let's fill that in whilst we know it. So bake is question number 4, okay? So that leaves us with sandwich and junk food. So do they have make or, let's see, have? They have here. So you can have a sandwich as well. So I think eat is going to be picture number 15, to eat junk food. Then we have go. So you can go to the movies. So that would be picture number 9. Like. What can you like? You can like, let's see what we have. A pet, you can like cake. You can like television or glasses. Oh, we actually have first, sorry. So let's take a look at have. So I think we said have a sandwich was what we said it was. So that would be picture 13. So let's tick that one off. Then I'm going to skip like for now, because as you can see, there's a lot to do that you can like in here. So listen. What can you listen to? You can listen to the radio. That is picture number 8. You can live in a flat. So that is picture number 1. You can play tennis. So that's picture number 12. You can read a newspaper, so that's question or picture number 7. You can speak German, so that is picture number 5. Now you see we already have a lot less to work with. So you can watch television, that would be picture number 10. You can wear. What can you wear? You can wear glasses. That's picture 18. You can ride a bike, so that's picture number 2. And you can blow out candles, which is picture number 11. And then we now know that like is number 3, a pet. So you can like a pet. Now, what we did there is called the process of elimination. And this is when you're not sure about an answer, you try to find all the answers, and the one that you're left with has to be the answer that you need. So that is how you figure out that. And this is applicable to any subject, not just English. And you're going to find that you might use it more often than you think. Because a lot of times you might think you know the answer, but you're not 100% sure. Then you can use this process of elimination to figure out what the correct answer is. Then over here, we're taking a look at verb phrases and noun phrases. So verb phrases refer to the verbs and the helping words, such as was, is, and are, am, and are. Sorry. And then a noun phrase is a group of words in a sentence that acts like a noun. So instead, like here, they give you an example. Joseph went to town, where Joseph is the noun. My big brother went to town is a noun phrase. So we have 2 little tasks for this section. So for verb phrases, they want you to underline the verbs in these sentences and circle the words that help them. So we're going to circle our auxiliary verbs and underline our verbs. So I'm going to do the verbs first and then the auxiliary verbs. So I am waiting for Anne. So waiting is your verb. The school bus is coming. Coming is your verb. My bike was tied to the tree. Tied is your verb. And how do we know it's a verb, guys? Because it gives us tense and time, as well as being a doing word. John is eating an apple. The children are playing in the park. The kite was blown away, and the class is going to the zoo. So those are your verbs: waiting, coming, tied, eating, playing, blown, and going. And then to show you what your auxiliary verbs are, your helping verbs, it is am, is, was, is, are, was, and is. So these are all auxiliary verbs, and we use them to help us, to help our verb to make sense in the sentence. Then taking a look at noun phrases, our task there is to underline the noun phrase. So my little sister is 6. So my little sister you could have replaced with Catherine or Kate, and that would have worked as a noun. So my little sister is your noun phrase. So what you can do if you're trying to understand this and you're struggling to understand this is try to replace your noun phrase with an actual noun. So if you're looking at something like my little sister is 6, look at something like Kate is 6, and then you know that my little sister is your noun phrase. My brother had a party. My brother. The big house was on fire. The big house. The old lady cleaned her house. The old lady. My beautiful flowers drooped in the sun. My beautiful flowers. My old bike was stolen. My old bike. And the high mountain was covered in a cloud. The high mountain. So here our noun phrases are my little sister, my brother, the big house, the old lady, my beautiful flowers, my old bike, and the high mountain. Then we're looking at puns. So puns, they're one of my favorite forms of humor. I find them to be quite entertaining. So let's look at these puns and then we're going to discuss their double meanings. So the first one is a boiled egg for breakfast is hard to beat. So what they're trying to say here is that nothing is quite as good as a boiled egg for breakfast. But it's also saying that you cannot beat a boiled egg because a boiled egg is hard. So that has two meanings. Then when a clock is hungry, it goes back 4 seconds. So instead of saying 4 with just an O, so without the U, it's trying to say that a clock goes back 1, 2, 3, 4 seconds in time. But it is also funny because it is basically playing on the words, I'm going back 4 seconds. I'm going back for a second helping. Then we have time flies like an arrow and fruit flies like bananas. So the first one is a simile, comparing time passing to an arrow flying past. But the second one isn't trying to tell you that fruit is flying like something. It is telling you that fruit flies, the insects, like bananas. Then we have been struck by lightning is a shocking experience, which is also very funny because we all know that lightning is electricity. And what happens when you play with electricity or when you're irresponsible with electricity? You get shocked. So it was shocking in the sense of it shocked him, but it was also shocking in the sense of it is not something that happens often. Then we have, I've been to the dentist many times, so I know the drill, which means that you know what's going to happen at the dentist, but it also means that you know the drill, the tooth drill that the dentist works with. And this was a sign on a pig farm gate. So it says no parking in the driveway instead of no parking in the driveway. Then over here, we have metaphors and assonance. So can you remember the difference between a metaphor and between assonance? So a metaphor compares two things without using the words like or as. So for example, she has a heart of gold. And then assonance, which are words with the same vowel sound, are used to mimic or repeat the sound of the thing you're writing about or to suggest a mood. So for example, you have, do you like blue shoes? So there you have do, blue, and shoes, who all create assonance. So I'm going to leave this slide up for a moment before we go on to the next slide, just to give you guys some time to write down those notes and those answers before we go on to the next slide. Okay, so if at any point you feel like I'm moving too quickly for you, please go ahead and pause the video to take your time to write down all the answers and the notes that you need. So we're going to read the poem Macavity the Mystery Cat, and you're going to dramatize it to demonstrate the mysterious ways of the cat. They want you to circle the words in the poem that rhyme and to look up the words that appear in bold text. Write down their meanings in the box along the side of the poem. So over here. So I'm going to read the poem. It was written by T.S. Eliot As you can see, it is relatively long. And then we'll look at the words in bold and write down those meanings. So Macavity, the mystery cat. Macavity's a mystery cat. He's called the hidden paw, for he's the master criminal who can defy the law. He's the bafflement of Scotland Yard, the flying squad's despair, for when they reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's broken every human law. He breaks the law of gravity. His powers of floating would make the Fakir stare, but when you reach the scene of crime, Macavity's not there. You may seek him in the basement, you may look up in the air, but I tell you once and once again, Macavity's not there. Macavity's a ginger cat. He's very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. He sways his head from side to side with movements like a snake, and when you think he's half asleep, he's always wide awake. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity, for he's a fiend and a feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by-street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity's not there. He's outwardly respectable. They say he cheats at cards, and his footprints are not found in any files of Scotland Yards. And when the lard is looted or the jewel case is rifled, or when the milk is missing or another peak's been stifled, or the greenhouse glass is broken and the trailer's past repair, there's the wonder of the thing. Macavity's not there. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. There never was a cat of such deceitfulness and suavity. He always has an alibi or one or two to spare, and whatever time the deed took place, Macavity wasn't there. And they say that all the cats whose wicked deeds are widely known. I might mention Mungo Jerry, I might mention Brittlebone, and nothing more than agents for the cat who, all the time, just controls their operation. The Napoleon of crime. Macavity, Macavity, there's no one like Macavity. He's a fiend in feline shape, a monster of depravity. You may meet him in a by-street, you may see him in the square, but when a crime's discovered, then Macavity, 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 Macavity. When a crime's discovered, then Macavity's not there. So let's look at the words over here. So we have master criminal as our first one. So what do you guys think a master criminal is? It means that he is a criminal well trained in his art. It means that he is the one criminal who is better than all the criminals. Then we have defy. So when you defy something, you are going against what is expected. Then we have law of gravity. So what is the law of gravity? It's also known as the Newtonian law. So that is whatever goes up must come down. That is the law of gravity. Then we have Fakir. I'm not sure 100% what that means. So let's see. So Fakir refers to a Muslim or loosely a Hindu religious ascetic who lives solely on alms. So I'm going to continue writing over here is So that's your definition for verkeer over there. Then we have sunken in. So when something is sunken, it is below the surface. Highly domed. In this case, they're referring to his head. So it means he has a very large, round head. Neglect. What does neglect mean? It means that something has been left to go to waste. Okay, so those are the words over there. I'm going to put it up like that, but just leave it up for a moment because when it's out of the text box, you'll see it's going to be quite confusing because the words are going to run over each other. Okay, like you can see over there. Then we have, what else do we have over here? We have like a snake. So that means that he moves like a snake does. So he slithers as a snake does. Then we have fiend, which means a foe or not a friend. Feline is the scientific name for a cat. Then we have depravity, which means moral corruption or wickedness. Square, as they're referring to here, is like a place where a community can gather. Scotland Yard is like the UK's FBI, basically. Larders looted, so that is when, so you guys, do you know what a larder is? So that's where we keep food. It means when the food in the larder is missing. Rifle. Let's see what else we can find. Case, or the jewel case is rifle, means that it's been looked through. Then we have trellis, so that's like a safety gate of sorts. Deceitfulness means when you are prone to tricking people. Suavity, so this is a French origin word, suave. Which means to have or to be charming. And then a monster of depravity. So we know what depravity means now. We've set it up here somewhere. Moral corruption or wickedness. So it means that he is made up entirely of depravity. So there you have all of those dictionary definitions, which again, I'm leaving up for a moment before we go on to the next slide. Okay. So read the poem aloud and talk about the description of the cat. Which of these pictures do you think represents the cavity the best? So is it the grey cat or the ginger cat? And the answer would be, it's actually quite simple. It is the ginger cat. And why? They say he's ginger, they say his eyes are sunken in, they say he's kind of shabby because of neglect, his coat is dusty. So which sentences in the poem tell you how Macavity looks? So let's say Macavity's a ginger cat. He's very tall and thin. You would know him if you saw him, for his eyes are sunken in. His brow is deeply lined with thought. His head is highly domed. His coat is dusty from neglect. His whiskers are uncombed. So that is basically let's just make sure, the third stanza of the poem. So I'm just going to write the third stanza. You guys need to quote this, please. Stanza of the poem. What in the description of Macavity tells us he is intelligent? So what tells us that he is smart? So let's see. So that would be his head is highly domed. And this tells us that he is smart because it is often said his, oh, goodness me. It's often said that people who are smart have large foreheads, and it is insinuated with his head is highly domed. So what does the Napoleon of crime mean? So Napoleon was a great general. So it means that he is the leader of a crime syndicate. Why is the cat called the hidden paw? Because you never seem to find him when there has been a crime, and he manipulates others to act for him. The poet uses personification when he describes Macavity as having human characteristics. What human features does he say the cat has? So let's take a look back here. Okay, so he compares the cat I'm sorry. The cat is compared to human criminals as someone with an alibi or someone who can control others. So that is how they compare him to a human. Then they want you to write a poem of your own about a clever animal. Describe the features of the animal. What does it do that makes it clever? Discuss the animal with your group. Write down words that describe the animal, then add words that rhyme with the words you already had. Use the rhyming words at the end of each pair of lines. Write a draft on rough paper before you write it in your book over here, and then you can draw a picture as well. So I'm going to leave these answers up just for a moment, and then we'll continue to the next slide. Okay. So now we're taking a look at Red Riding Hood and the wolf. So we all know the story about Red Riding Hood and the wolf. But first, before we read it, we're going to read this little sticky note that we have right over here. So a verse is a group of lines in a poem. Some poems have one verse, some poems have many verses. How many verses does this poem have? So it's every section. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And this one was written by Roald Dahl. So read this poem aloud as a group. You'll see it very similar to the story you know, except the poet twists the story to show that the girl defends herself against the wolf. So let's read. As soon as Wolf began to feel that he would like a decent meal, he went and knocked on Grandma's door. When Grandma opened it, she saw the sharp white teeth, the horrid grin, and Wolfie said, "May I come in?" Poor Grandmama was terrified. "He's going to eat me up," she cried. And she was absolutely right. He ate her up in one big bite. But Grandmama was small and tough, and Wolfie wailed, "That's not enough. I haven't yet begun to feel that I've had a decent meal." He ran around the kitchen yelping, "I've got to have a second helping," then added with a frightful leer, "I'm therefore going to wait right here till little Miss Red Riding Hood comes from walking in the wood." He quickly put on Grandma's clothes. Of course, he hadn't eaten those. He dressed himself in coat and hat and put on shoes, and after that, he even brushed and combed his hair, then sat himself in Grandma's chair. In came the little girl in red. She stopped, she stared, and then she said, "What great big ears you have, Grandma." "All the better to hear you with," the wolf replied. "What great big eyes you have, Grandma," said Little Red Riding Hood. "All the better to see you with," the wolf said. He sat there watching her and smiled. He thought, "I'm going to eat this child. Compare with her old grandmama, she's going to taste like caviar." Then Little Red Riding Hood said, "But Grandma, what a lovely big furry coat you have on." "That's wrong," cried Wolf. "Have you forgot to tell me what big teeth I've got?" "Oh, well, no matter what you say, I'm going to eat you anyway." Small girl smiles. Her black belt drops. She gave the wolf karate chop. She aimed them at the creature's head. A few chops later, she sees him dead. Some weeks later, in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. But what a change! Not a cloak of red, no silly hood upon her head. She said, "Hello, and do please note my lovely furry wolfskin coat." So what parts of this poem seem similar to the Red Riding Hood fairy tale? So the similar parts are that the wolf eats the grandma and waits for Little Red Riding Hood. She asks him all the questions that we hear in the fairy tale, but she's not eaten as well. How is the ending of the poem different from the ending of the fairy tale? So Little Red Riding Hood kills the wolf with her exceptional karate skills, and she wears a wolf skin coat. She is not saved by the wood chopper. How do we know the poet met Red Riding Hood? So he says, I came across Miss Riding Hood. So some week later in the wood, I came across Miss Red Riding Hood. Some weeks later in the wood, I came across Miss Riding Hood. So he says that he has met her. So that's how we know that the speaker has met Little Red Riding Hood. And then they want you to make up a little role play of this poem. So you're going to need a Red Riding Hood, a grandmother, a wolf, and the poet himself. And I'm going to keep this up just for a few seconds, and then we'll go on to our next slide. Okay. Now we're going to read some limericks. Now, limericks are some of my favorite little poems. They tell short stories. They've got a very fun rhyme scheme. So let's read it before we answer the questions. There was once a poor boy named Sid. He thought he knew more than he did. He thought that a shark would flee if you bark, and he swam out to try it. Poor kid. A painter who lived in Great Britain interrupted two girls with their knitting. He said with a sigh, that park bench you know, I just painted it right where you are sitting. And then I need a front door for my hall. The replacement I bought was too tall, so I hacked and I chopped it and carefully locked it, and now the dumb thing's too small. So how many lines does a limerick have? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and that is consistent throughout. So it has five lines. Which lines rhyme? So you'll see it's A, A, B, B, A. So it's, I'm going to write down the rhyme scheme, A, B, B, A. So it is the first two and the last line and the middle two lines that rhyme. How many syllables are there in each line? So there once was a poor boy named Sid, a painter who lived in Great Britain. I need a front door for my hall. So there are 8 syllables in line 1. Who thought he knew more than he did? Interrupted 2 girls with their knitting. The replacement I bought was too tall. There are 9 syllables in line 2, 9 or 8. Line 3, he thought that a shark, he said with a sigh. So I hacked and chopped it. So that's 5 for line 3. Line 4, would flee if you bark. That park bench you know I, and carefully locked it. So that's 5 or 6 for line 4. And then the last line, and he swam out to try it, poor kid, just painted it right where you're sitting. And now the dumb thing is too small. So that's 8 again for line 5. Then they want you to write your own limerick, starting with, there once was a girl called Jill. Make a list of words that rhyme with the first line, in this case, Jill. Your list of rhyming words might include hill, drill, pill, skill, bill, will, and ill. And then try using words that rhyme with Ben. You could use words like ten, hen, pen, when, or Ben. And this one starts, there once was a boy called Ben. Okay, so there once was a boy called Ben. He was almost 10, as an example. So you can write those. I'm not really going to leave this up for very long. It's only a few answers, and this is your own creative work. Okay. Then they ask, have you ever seen an iguana? How do they feel and what are they like? Okay, so that one is all personal questions. So let's read our poem first. I'm walking with my iguana. When the temperature rises to above 85, my iguana is looking like he's coming alive. So we make it to the beach, my iguana and me. Then he sits on my shoulder as we stroll by the sea. Well, if anyone sees us, we're a big surprise, my iguana and me, on our daily exercise. Till somebody phones the local police, says I've got an alligator tied to a leash. It's the spines on his back that make him look grim, but he just loves to be tickled under the chin. And I know that my iguana is ready for bed when he puts on his pajamas and lays down his sleepy head. And I'm walking with my iguana. My iguana and my piranha and my chihuahua, my chinchilla with my gorilla, my caterpillar, and I'm walking with my iguana. And this was written by Brian Moses. And then they say, match these words with their correct description. Say the names of the animals and listen to the sound. So our animals, we have piranha, chinchilla, chihuahua, gorilla, caterpillar, and alligator. And for our descriptions, we have small rodent with a bushy tail, small dog, fish with sharp teeth, large ape, like a crocodile, but it has a shorter snout, soft body, many legs, it looks like a worm, and can be brightly colored. So a piranha is a fish with sharp teeth. It's found mainly in the Amazon River. It is freshwater fish. Then we have chinchilla, which is a small rodent with a bushy tail. They are nocturnal and they do not like to be picked up usually. A chihuahua is a small dog. A gorilla is a large ape. And gorillas are endangered because people hunt them for their hands. They believe that their hands bring good luck or can be used as medicine. And because of that, a large part of our gorilla population has been going extinct. Then we have a caterpillar, which is soft body, many legs, looks like a worm, and can be brightly colored. They usually turn into moths or butterflies. And then an alligator is like a crocodile, but it has a shorter snout and it is a bit smaller. Then they say here, the UN adds some iguanas to its endangered species list. 22 March 2010, the United Nations Environment Program is adding several reptiles to its endangered species trade list. The purpose of this list is to stop people all over the world from trading with animals that are threatened with extinction. 4 species of iguanas were added to the list. The protected iguanas are caught and sold to people, mainly in Europe and the US, who want to own them as unusual exotic pets. Putting those iguana species on the list means that governments can regulate their trade. So do you think the writer was really walking with his iguana, or is it just a funny poem? So why do you say so? So I think it is just a funny poem because you can't walk a piranha or a caterpillar or a gorilla. So I think it's a funny poem for those reasons. You might disagree with me, and that's also perfectly fine as long as you can substantiate it. So the writer talks about the temperature being 85 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. Sorry, what is that in degrees Celsius? So let's quickly see. So 85 degrees Fahrenheit is almost 30 degrees Celsius, so it is 29 degrees Celsius. Why do you think the people might think the iguana is an alligator? Because he is scaly and green and big, like an alligator. Would you be surprised to see someone taking his pet iguana for a walk? Why? So I would be surprised because iguanas are passive reptiles and they are not common walking pets. So you expect to see a dog. You don't expect to see an iguana. Would you phone the police if you saw such a sight? Why? So no, because he is not harming anyone. He's just trying to make sure that his pet is healthy. What words rhyme in this poem? Enter 4 pairs of rhyming words. So I have 5 and alive. And alive. Surprise and exercise. Surprise and exercise. Me and see. And then police and leash. Those are my 5 pairs of rhyming words. Yours can obviously be grim and chin as well, bed and head, and then iguana, piranha, chihuahua, chinchilla, gorilla as well. So those are the answers over there. I'm going to leave it up for a second before we go on to the next slide. And then our last poem is Hooray, hooray, it's New Year's Day. Hooray, hooray, it's New Year's Day, the day we start anew. So this year I've decided to become a kangaroo. Or maybe I'll learn to fly, or how to walk through walls, or how to turn invisible, or surf on waterfalls. I'll make myself elastic, and I'll teach myself to shrink. I'll turn into a liquid and I pull me down the sink. I'll visit other planets and meet aliens galore. I'll travel to the distant past and ride a dinosaur. I've got so many wondrous plans. I'm starting right away. This will be the best year yet. Hooray, it's New Year's Day. And this was written by Ken Nisbet. And that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed all the different poems that we read today and that you truly enjoyed this lesson. I hope to see you back soon.